She took his blind father to the office, and what he said about her made the CEO fall in love. He was the most powerful CEO in the city, feared, admired, and completely untouchable, until the day his secretary did something no one ever dared. She brought his blind father to the office. What was supposed to be a simple visit turned into something no one expected, because with just a few words, the old man said something that shattered Adrian's perfect world, something about her. And in that moment, Adrian realized he had never really seen her. Not until then, and when the truth finally came to light, it wasn't just the company that was at risk, it was his heart. Before we continue, if you enjoyed touching and inspiring stories like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Now, let's get back to the story. Are you out of your mind? Adrian Cole's voice cut through the silence of the 38th floor like a blade. It wasn't raised, he never needed to shout, but the sharp edge of his tone made every intern in the hallway flinch. Elena Marquez stood still at the center of his office, one hand lightly resting on the back of a chair, the other gently gripping the old man's elbow. The old man smiled, unfazed. "Good afternoon to you too, son." The entire room froze. For a moment, even Adrian did. His jaw tightened, the tendons in his neck visible under the soft collar of his white shirt. He glanced at Elena, then back at the man with the cane, his blind father. "What is he doing here?" Adrian asked, the calm in his voice now laced with something else. Discomfort, perhaps even fear. "I brought him," Elena answered, meeting his eyes. Her voice was soft but steady. "He wanted to see your office." "He's blind," Adrian said sharply, the words colder than he intended. "He doesn't need sight to see what matters." That stopped him. For a fraction of a second, Elena saw something flicker in his eyes, an emotion buried deep. But then it vanished behind the familiar curtain of cold efficiency. "You had no right to bring him here without telling me," he said. Elena's fingers trembled slightly on the chair, but she didn't back down. "He called me, said he hadn't seen you in months, that you weren't answering. He asked for help, just for 10 minutes of your time. That didn't seem too much to ask." Samuel's cane tapped the carpet once, twice, like a quiet rhythm of patience. "I was hoping we could have lunch," he added. "I brought sandwiches, tuna, your favorite, when you were 8. Adrian looked away, jaw clenched so tight his cheek twitched. "There's a board meeting in 15 minutes, he muttered, mostly to himself. "I'll make sure you're not late," Elena offered. He stared at her, long and hard, as if trying to see past her calm face to the intention underneath. Then he turned and walked to the glass wall, hands in his pockets, back to both of them. Elena gently guided Samuel to the couch in the corner, letting him sit while she set down a paper bag. The silence grew awkward, thick with words no one wanted to say. Samuel, however, had no such restraint. "You've built quite a kingdom here," he said, turning his head slightly toward where Adrian stood. "Feels cold, expensive, efficient." "Just how I like it," Adrian said without turning. Samuel hummed. "Smells like arrogance and overpriced cologne." Elena almost choked on a laugh, but caught herself just in time. Adrian, despite himself, let out a single short exhale through his nose. A near smile. Then silence again. Samuel reached into the bag, unwrapping a sandwich with his careful, practiced fingers. "You remember the day you told me you wanted to be a CEO?" he said. "You were 12. Said you wanted a big building with your name on it, where no one could ever tell you what to do." "I remember," Adrian replied quietly. "You also said you'd never let success change you." That stung. Elena saw it in the way Adrian's shoulders stiffened, the slight turn of his head. "I'm busy, Dad." "You're empty, son." The room went still. Even the hum of the AC felt loud after that. Elena's breath caught, unsure if she should step out, say something, pretend to check emails, anything to soften the moment. But Samuel wasn't done. "You think power makes you untouchable. But I've seen it destroy better men than you, he said gently. The cold doesn't protect you, Adrian. It isolates you. Adrian turned then, slowly, his gray-blue eyes stormy. And you think she's the exception? He nodded toward Elena. Samuel smiled. I don't need eyes to see what she is. Adrian looked at her too, really looked this time, not just as his assistant who brought his coffee exactly right, or managed his impossible schedule with perfect precision, but as someone who had stood in front of him calm and kind, even now, as he nearly dismissed her in front of his father. You don't see it, do you? Samuel continued, his voice soft now. She reminds me of your mother. Adrian's expression cracked, just a little. She listened more than she spoke. Stayed even when you pushed, loved even when it hurt. I'm not in love with her, Adrian said far too quickly. Elena blinked. That hadn't been the topic. Samuel raised an amused brow. Didn't say you were. Silence again. Then, to no one in particular, Samuel added, but the heart doesn't wait for permission. Adrian, it just knows. Elena looked down at her hands, her cheeks warm. She wasn't sure what to say, if anything. The room felt too full of things unsaid. The board meeting reminder chimed softly from Adrian's watch. He glanced at it, exhaled, and typed a quick command. The board would wait. Some things couldn't. He turned away. Elena, get him home safely. Samuel stood slowly, adjusting his sweater. Take care of that heart, son, before it forgets how to feel. Adrian didn't reply. Elena walked with Samuel to the elevator. Before the doors closed, Samuel turned his head slightly toward her. He doesn't know how to show it, he said, but he listens when you speak. She nodded quietly, pressing the elevator button for the lobby. Downstairs, Elena waited with Samuel on the bench outside, the September breeze brushing through her hair. She offered him a sandwich half. You think I did the right thing? She asked. Samuel smiled. You showed him something no one else ever dared. Your heart. The silence between them was peaceful. Then her phone buzzed. A message. From Adrian Cole. Come back upstairs. Her heart skipped a beat, because whatever was waiting above wasn't just another meeting. The elevator ride back up to the 38th floor felt different this time. Elena stared at her reflection in the mirrored walls, smoothing her blouse instinctively. Her heart hadn't stopped thudding since she saw the message. Come back upstairs? No punctuation, no explanation. Just like Adrian, always in control, always saying the bare minimum. And yet, there was something about the timing. Something about the way he hadn't even said goodbye to his father. The doors opened with a quiet chime. The hallway, usually bustling with assistants and executives, was now empty. Most were in the boardroom, which meant Adrian was likely alone. She hesitated a second at the door before knocking twice. Come in, his voice called from inside, calm, unreadable. Elena stepped in slowly. Adrian stood near the floor-to-ceiling window, hands behind his back, staring out at the skyline like it owed him answers. You called me back, she said, trying to sound composed. I did. He didn't turn around. I didn't like what my father said, he added. Elena swallowed. I wasn't trying to, but I also didn't stop him. That made her blink. He finally turned, his eyes a stormy gray-blue, locking onto hers. I wanted to ask you something, he said, walking closer, each step measured, intentional. Elena held her breath. His presence filled the room so easily that it felt like the oxygen shifted when he was near. Why do you work here? He asked suddenly. She frowned. What do you mean? You could have left 100 times. You're overqualified. You get offers all the time. I've seen them. I like this job, she said, her voice soft. You like dealing with my mood swings, my impossible expectations, my calendar from hell? She almost laughed. Not exactly. He stepped even closer now. Then why? Her answer came without hesitation. Because I believe in what we do here, and I believe in you, even when you don't believe in yourself. That one hit. Adrian looked away for a second, jaw tightening. She saw his throat move as he swallowed something unspoken. He turned his back again. "I haven't visited my father in 6 months," he said, almost like a confession. "You don't have to explain anything to me," she said gently. "I do," he said, glancing over his shoulder, "because today you made me feel something I didn't expect, something I've avoided for years." She didn't respond. She wasn't sure she could. "I realized," he continued, "that I've spent so long trying to control everything, outcomes, people, emotions, that I stopped noticing what was right in front of me." He finally turned again. This time his expression was raw. No CEO mask, just Adrian. "You remind him of my mother." "I didn't mean to." He didn't mean it as an insult. That was probably the highest compliment he's given anyone. Silence filled the space between them. Then his voice dropped, lower now. "Can I ask you something else?" Elena nodded. He stepped closer, their distance now barely professional. "Do you see me?" he asked. "The real me, not the job, not the title." "Me." Her heart thudded. She met his gaze. "Yes." And there it was, the crack in the glass between them. Not shattered, but visible now, the space where the ice had finally started to melt. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at her with eyes that for once didn't seem cold, just tired. Human. And then the door burst open. "Mr. Cole," Tara, his chief of staff, blurted out, breathless. "You need to see this." Adrian straightened instantly. The room shifted back into its usual tension. Tara held out a tablet. "It's a leak. Someone sent internal documents to the press. The acquisition you've been planning. It's out." Adrian took the tablet, scanning it quickly. His jaw clenched. "Who did this?" "No idea yet, but legal's already on it." "I want names in 10 minutes, he growled. "Shut down all external comms. I want every non-essential server offline." Elena stepped back, the atmosphere suddenly 10 degrees colder. Adrian turned to her. "Stay." It wasn't a request. She stood still as Tara left, closing the door behind her. He paced once, then stopped. "Only 4 people had access to this data," he muttered. "You, me, Victor in finance, and Jackson." Her stomach dropped. Jackson, her ex. Adrian noticed her expression shift. "You know something," he said. Elena hesitated. "Jackson's been odd lately, asking me about projects he's not part of. He said it was for internal coordination, but I didn't think much of it." Adrian's eyes narrowed. "Find every email he sent this week," he ordered. "And Elena," she looked up, "if he's involved, I need to know if you still trust him." Her heart caught in her chest, not because she doubted her own answer, but because of what it would cost to say it out loud. And deep down, she knew. This wasn't just about trust in Jackson anymore. It was about whether Adrian could trust her. And whether she could survive what came next. Adrian didn't take his eyes off her. That intense gray-blue stare of his, sharp, intelligent, unforgiving, was now something else too. Watchful, questioning, maybe even afraid. Not afraid of her. Afraid of what she'd say. Elena took a breath, choosing her words carefully. "I broke up with Jackson 3 months ago," she said quietly. "Whatever he's involved in, I'm not part of it." Adrian nodded once, slowly, but didn't look relieved. "I didn't think you were," he said, "but I needed to hear it from you." That one sentence, so subtle, so careful, felt like him offering a branch after years of building walls. He didn't ask if she was okay. He didn't apologize for the tone, but still, it was something. He turned back to the window, the city below flickering with the early evening lights. "He never liked me," Adrian added after a moment. Elena arched an eyebrow. What gave it away? The death stares in the elevator? He actually let out a small laugh. It was short, real, unexpected. "He told me once that I was a machine, that I didn't know how to feel." Elena tilted her head. "Well, You did just threaten to shut down an entire server room with the same tone most people use to order coffee. Adrian smirked. A little. Barely. It was the closest thing to warmth she'd ever seen from him during a crisis. He tapped the side of the tablet, then handed it to her. Tell me what you see. She glanced at the screen. Dozens of internal financial reports, most marked confidential, had been copied and redacted. Whoever leaked them had blurred key details, but left enough to damage the company's reputation. He was smart, she murmured, took just enough to look harmless, but this could tank the deal. It won't, Adrian said, voice firm again, but someone's playing with fire. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. I need someone in this building I can trust completely. Elena looked up. And I choose you. Her breath caught. Not because of the words themselves, but because of how carefully he said them. Like trust wasn't something he gave. It was something he fought against giving, until it was undeniable. I'll do whatever it takes, she said. I know. They stood like that for a beat too long, neither moving, the tension not cold anymore, but charged. Then the phone on the desk buzzed. Adrian answered, voice clipped. Cole. Pause. Send him in. He hung up, his jaw tightening again. Jackson's on his way up. Elena froze. You're not firing him in front of me, are you? I'm not firing him, Adrian replied. Yet. The word hung like a threat. Seconds later, the door opened and Jackson Reed stepped in, tall, confident, still wearing the same smug grin that used to charm everyone at company events. Not Elena. Not anymore. His eyes flicked between Adrian and her, pausing just long enough to make her stomach twist. Elena, he said with a nod. Still wearing blue, huh? Always like that on you? Adrian didn't move, but the air thickened. She didn't respond. Sit down, Adrian said flatly. Jackson took the chair in front of the desk like it was a throne. What's this about? Something urgent? Adrian leaned forward slowly, elbows on the desk. Gaze never leaving Jackson's. I like when people play smart, he said, but not when they think I'm stupid. Jackson's smile faltered just slightly. Internal documents were leaked, Adrian continued. 4 people had access, 3 of them I trust. Jackson shrugged. You think I'd risk my job for what? A job. A few headlines? I think you'd risk anything if you thought you'd win. I didn't do it, Jackson said quickly. Elena spoke, surprising even herself. Then why were you asking about my login 2 weeks ago? Why did I find a copied folder on your shared drive? Jackson's face dropped. Careful, he said to her. His voice colder now. You're letting personal feelings cloud your judgment. Adrian stood. Elena had never seen someone move so silently and still command so much power. When Adrian rounded the desk, he stood just behind Jackson, towering, intimidating. You have 10 minutes, Adrian said, voice low. To tell me the truth, or I let legal handle this. Jackson's mask finally cracked. You can't prove anything. Actually, Elena said, pulling her phone from her pocket, it just sent me a copy of the access logs. You copied 3 confidential files using my credentials. Jackson turned sharply. You went through my drive? I secure the CEO's digital access. That gives me jurisdiction over everything connected to his systems, including yours. Adrian smiled without warmth. You messed with the wrong assistant. Jackson stood suddenly, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. I see how it is, he snapped. You're trying to protect her now? Adrian said nothing. I was right all along, wasn't I? Jackson said, voice rising. This whole time, you've had a thing for her. Silence. Elena's heart skipped. Adrian didn't deny it, not with words, just with a glance in her direction. And that was enough. Jackson scoffed. Unbelievable! He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Elena stood still, pulse thudding in her ears. Adrian walked back to the desk and sat, suddenly looking exhausted. Sorry, he muttered. For what? He looked up at her. For not stopping him sooner? Her voice was quieter now. You don't have to protect me. "I want to," he said. And for a second she wished he'd said that under any other circumstance. But even then, it still meant something. The silence between them softened. Then Adrian let out a dry breath. "You really still wear blue every day?" She gave a small smile. "It's called brand loyalty." He shook his head, almost amused. Then his phone buzzed again. He frowned at the screen. "What is it?" she asked. He stared at the message. "It's from legal." "What did they say?" His voice dropped. "They found the leak. And it wasn't just Jackson." Elena stepped closer, her voice almost a whisper now. "What do you mean? It wasn't just Jackson?" Adrian didn't look up right away. His fingers tightened around the phone as he reread the message. Whatever was in there, it hit him harder than she expected. "They traced a second access point," he said finally. "One of the files was downloaded from a home network." "Not company issued." Elena blinked. "Whose?" He met her eyes. "Yours." She froze. "What?" He stood slowly, not accusing, just searching, watching her carefully, like he didn't want to believe it either. "The ISP session logs flagged your router's MAC address. Twice. 2 different timestamps. One 3 weeks ago, and another last night." "That's impossible," she said, stepping back slightly. "I haven't opened any files from home in over a month. I don't even use the company laptop at night anymore." "I know," Adrian said quietly. "Which means someone cloned your router when they had access. Someone who knew your network and used it to make it look like you." "So then, what are you saying?" "I'm saying someone had access. Someone used your network to plant a trail." Her stomach twisted. And in that moment, all the dots started connecting. Jackson's sudden charm returning weeks after their breakup, the messages asking to borrow her laptop just for a second, the time he offered to fix her Wi-Fi password when it was lagging. "Oh my God," she murmured. "He cloned my network. He must have mirrored access while he was at my apartment. He used my trust against me." Adrian's jaw clenched. "He wanted you to take the fall if anything went wrong, and the worst part? He would have gotten away with it." Elena sank into the nearest chair, the shock finally catching up to her. "I let him in, literally. I let him into my apartment. I gave him coffee. I laughed at his stupid jokes. And the whole time—" Adrian knelt in front of her, leveling his gaze with hers. "You're not stupid." Her eyes welled up, but she didn't let the tears fall. "You have no idea what it feels like to realize you've been used." "I do," he said. The quiet confession caught her off guard. He didn't elaborate, but the weight in his voice said enough. He'd been there too, maybe in business, maybe in family, maybe in love. She looked down at her hands, fidgeting. "I should have seen it coming." "People like him are good at hiding their intentions," Adrian said. "That's why they always underestimate people like you." "People like me?" He softened. "Kind, honest, believing in the good until it hurts." She gave a short, breathy laugh. "That sounds dangerously close to a compliment." It was. He stood, offering his hand. She hesitated, then took it. His fingers closed gently around hers, warm and steady. "We're going to fix this," he said, "together." And for the first time since this whole mess started, she believed him. Later that evening, the office had mostly emptied out. Only the soft hum of the floor lights and the quiet buzz of cleaning staff echoed through the halls. Adrian sat across from Elena in the private conference room. Between them, 3 laptops, 2 untouched coffees, and 1 printed list of every access log from the last 30 days. "You're better at this than half the cybersecurity team," he said, watching her scroll. "Please, I cried during a Google Docs permissions tutorial once." He chuckled, an actual chuckle, and leaned back in his chair. "Still, you've been 4 steps ahead of everyone today." "Desperation is a good motivator," she mumbled, zooming in on another highlighted file. "And rage. Don't forget rage. Trust me, I haven't forgotten." She paused. "Are you going to press charges?" "Yes," he said simply. And I'm going to make sure he never works in this industry again." She nodded, then hesitated. "And what about me? What about you? If my name's tied to the breach, even as an unknowing access point—" "I won't let that happen," he interrupted, firm now. "You're not the villain in this story, Elena. You're the only reason I even found the truth." Her throat tightened again. "I didn't think you'd defend me. I didn't think anyone ever would," he said. "But here you are." She glanced at him, quietly surprised. Adrian reached for his coffee, then paused. "You know, my father was right." Elena blinked. "About what?" "You do remind me of my mother." She raised an eyebrow. "Was she stubborn and caffeine-dependent too?" "No." His voice softened. "She was the only person who ever made this life feel like it had meaning." Elena's smile faded slowly. Not out of sadness, just the weight of his words. "Thank you," she said gently. He looked at her, eyes meeting hers again across the dim table. "I didn't thank you earlier for bringing him here." "You don't have to." "I do, because I don't think I would have really noticed you, if he hadn't said what he did." Silence. Warm. Charged. Undeniable. But before either of them could say another word, Adrian's phone lit up again. He glanced down, then frowned. "What is it?" Elena asked. He handed her the screen. A single text message from an unknown number. "She's lying, and I can prove it." Elena stared at it, her blood suddenly cold. "Do you think that's Jackson?" Adrian shook his head slowly. "No, he doesn't play this quietly." "Then who?" Adrian was already dialing a number. "Only one way to find out." As the line rang, Elena sat back in her chair. The panic wasn't just about the message anymore. It was about one terrifying possibility. There might be someone else, someone closer than they thought. The call went straight to voicemail. Adrian lowered the phone slowly, his expression unreadable. They disconnected the number. Burner phone. Elena rubbed her temples, the weight of the past few hours finally catching up to her. Someone is playing a very quiet game. "A quiet game with very loud consequences," Adrian said. The message glowed on his screen again. "She's lying, and I can prove it." "I know you're not," he added without looking at her. She turned to him. "You're sure?" "Absolutely." He said it with such certainty that she had to look away for a second. It wasn't just trust. It was faith, and that hit deeper than she expected. She exhaled. "Then why does it still feel like everything's about to fall apart?" Adrian didn't answer at first. Instead, he tapped the edge of his watch thoughtfully. "Because trust is fragile, and right now, whoever's behind this knows exactly where to poke." She looked at him. "How do we poke back?" He gave her a small, sly smile. "We don't?" "Not yet." Elena raised an eyebrow. "You're going to outweight someone?" "I'm a CEO," he replied, deadpan. "I invented silent revenge." That actually made her laugh just a little, but enough to break the tension in the room. Then the smile faded. "Seriously? What now?" Adrian stood, walking toward the window again. "We monitor every file movement, every login, every device. I'll have IT install a shadow system on your network. We'll know the second someone tries to use your connection again." He turned back toward her. "But until then, I need you to do something. Anything. Keep acting like nothing happened." Elena blinked. "You want me to go back to work, like this is normal?" He nodded. "We need whoever's behind this to think they're winning. That's going to be hard. I'll make it easier." Her breath hitched slightly at the way he said it, low, certain, as if it meant more than just damage control. The next morning, Elena walked into the office wearing the same calm expression she'd mastered over the past year, but inside, she was unraveling. She passed co-workers who didn't know anything, who smiled and waved and asked about coffee orders and printer jams, people who had no idea there was a traitor among them. Or worse, more than one. Her desk felt colder, her inbox louder. Every unread email looked suspicious. Then, a moment of chaos. Her phone buzzed again. Blocked number. One new message. "You missed something." She stared at it, heart pounding. No attachment, no link. Just that. Elena stood, phone in hand, and walked straight to Adrian's office. She didn't knock, just stepped in and held the screen out. "They're watching me." Adrian scanned it quickly. Then, "Whoever it is, they're escalating." "I thought we were ahead of them," she said. "We were," he replied, walking around to his computer. "Which means something's changed. They're getting desperate." She watched him log into the surveillance review system, the one only a handful of people in the company had access to. "You think it's someone inside?" "I think it's someone with access, which narrows it down to about 20 people. And if it's someone we'd never suspect?" He paused. Then turned to look at her. "That's exactly who I'm afraid of." Later that day, Elena slipped into the break room just to breathe. She leaned against the counter, sipping cold coffee and trying not to spiral. The sound of someone entering made her straighten quickly. It was Maya, legal analyst. Sweet, quiet, the kind of person no one really noticed until now. "Oh, hey," Maya said, smiling. "Didn't mean to startle you." Elena smiled back, forcing casualness. "Just trying to survive the caffeine shortage." Maya laughed. "Tell me about it. Did you hear about Jackson?" "Yeah," Elena said slowly. "Can you believe it?" "Honestly?" Maya leaned in a bit. "I always thought he was kind of sketchy." Elena tilted her head. "Really?" Maya nodded, then took a sip from her thermos. "He once sent me a draft contract with my own notes removed, like he didn't expect me to keep a copy." Elena's mind raced. "You have it still?" "I never delete anything." That tiny spark of hope lit up. "Would you be willing to send it to me?" Elena asked. Maya raised an eyebrow. "Is this part of something?" Elena hesitated. "It might help clear something up." Maya paused for a second, then nodded. "I trust you." Those words echoed harder than they should. Elena smiled. "Thanks." That night, Elena forwarded the document to Adrian from home. She was just about to shut her laptop when her screen flickered. For a split second, everything went black. Then came back, and there it was, a folder, one she hadn't opened, never created, sitting on her desktop. Labeled, "Keep Quiet." Her blood ran cold. She clicked it. Inside, 3 screenshots of confidential financial sheets. 1 clipped image of a private company email, and 1 photo of her in her apartment, taken from outside the window. She staggered back from the desk, one hand flying to her mouth. Then her phone rang. "Adrian? Elena?" Her voice barely came out. "They were in my apartment." "What?" "They left files on my laptop, and there's a photo of me in my living room." Adrian didn't even hesitate. "I'm coming to you, now." She stared at the screen. "They're not trying to scare me," she whispered. "They're trying to silence me." Adrian arrived in less than 15 minutes. Elena barely processed the time. One moment, she was staring at the glowing folder on her laptop. The words, "Keep Quiet," burned into her thoughts. And the next, her intercom rang. She opened the door before she had time to worry if she looked okay. And there he was. No blazer. Shirt sleeves rolled to the elbow. Hair tousled from the wind. His breath was a little unsteady, like he'd rushed the whole way here without stopping. But what struck her most were his eyes, scanning her face, her frame, the room behind her, like he wasn't going to breathe properly until he was sure she was safe. "Are you okay?" he asked, already stepping inside. Elena shook her head, wordless. He closed the door behind him with a soft click, but the air around them still felt tense, electric. Adrian's gaze landed on her laptop, still open on the kitchen table. "Show me." She nodded and moved aside. He walked over and stared at the screen. Then he clicked the folder. Silence. He scrolled through the contents. 3 screenshots of internal files, one edited copy of a confidential company email, and then the photo, a photo of her, sitting on the couch, alone, lit by the soft lamp beside her, taken from outside her apartment window. Adrian's entire body stiffened. "They were watching you," he said, voice low. She swallowed hard. "I didn't even notice. I've lived here for 2 years. I always check the locks. I thought I was careful." "They didn't need to get inside," he murmured. "They just needed access, proximity, and your trust." He looked up at her. And this time, his eyes were different. Not angry, not calculating, protective, furious in the quietest, most dangerous way. "I should have seen this coming," he muttered. "I should have never let it get this far." "It's not your fault." "Yes, it is," he said, stepping closer. "This happened because you were trying to protect me. You got caught in the crossfire." Her throat tightened. "I didn't think someone would go this far just to hurt you." Adrian exhaled through his nose, shaking his head. "It's not about the company anymore. This is personal now." Elena sat down slowly, hands trembling slightly. "So what do we do?" Adrian crouched beside her chair, his hand resting on her knee for just a second, grounding her. "You're staying with me tonight," he said. She blinked. "What?" He met her gaze. "I'm not leaving you alone in this apartment, not while someone's watching you, not after that." Elena hesitated. "I mean, it's not necessary." "Yes, it is." His voice didn't rise, but it didn't budge either. "You're not safe here, and I won't risk anything happening to you. Not again." The way he said that, "not again," made her chest ache. There was more behind those words, but she didn't ask. Not yet. "Okay," she whispered. He nodded, standing back up. "Pack a bag, just basics. You'll stay at my place until we figure this out." She stood slowly, still processing. "You don't have to do this. I mean, your reputation." Adrian gave a short, humorless smile. "I don't care what people think. Let them talk. Let the press spin it. The only thing I care about right now is keeping you safe." She froze. Because she believed him. Not just the words, but the weight behind them. For the first time, it felt like his armor had cracked in a way it couldn't be put back. Elena packed quickly. A few clothes, a charger, a toothbrush, her hand still shaking slightly. As she zipped the bag, she noticed Adrian looking around her apartment. Not snooping, just observing. "It's warm in here," he said quietly. She turned. "What do you mean?" He looked over his shoulder at her. "Your space. It's warm. Soft colors, pictures, books. There's life here." She smiled just a little. "You sound surprised." "I am," he admitted. "My place doesn't feel like this." "It feels expensive." Elena tilted her head. "That sounds lonely." "It is." The honesty in that moment took her breath away. They left the apartment quietly, and Adrian kept a watchful eye on every shadow in the hallway. When they reached the garage, he opened the passenger door for her without a word. On the way to his penthouse, the car was silent, not awkward, just thick with everything neither of them knew how to say yet. Adrian's apartment was exactly what she expected. Minimalist, perfectly clean, cold-toned. The kind of place where everything was imported and probably had its own insurance policy. But the moment he opened the door and let her in, it felt different. Maybe because he was different tonight. He watched her as she walked slowly into the living room. "Bathroom's down the hall," he said. "Guest room has fresh sheets, but if you need anything, I'll knock," she said softly. He nodded. She paused, then turned to him. "Adrian." He looked at her, standing in the doorway with city lights behind her, and a look in his eyes she'd never seen before. Softness. "Yeah? Thank you." He didn't answer with words. He just stepped forward and gently reached up to tuck a loose strand of her hair behind her ear. His hand lingered for a second longer than it should have, and then he said, almost too quietly, "You have no idea how much I've wanted to protect you." Elena's heart thudded. Neither of them moved, but the air between them had completely changed. Before anything else could happen, a knock at the door. Both froze. Adrian's entire posture shifted. He stepped in front of her instinctively and moved toward the door. No one was expected. He opened it. No one was there. Only a small white envelope left on the floor. He picked it up, turned it over. There was no name, only a short line, typed and printed on paper. "If she stays with you, you both burn." Adrian stood in the doorway, staring down at the envelope in his hand like it might explode. Elena stepped beside him, her voice quiet but firm. "What does it say?" He turned the paper toward her. "If she stays with you, you both burn." No signature. No smudges. No indication of who left it or when. Just a clean, calculated message left on the floor of a man who had more surveillance than a government agency. And no cameras had caught it. Later, Adrian would learn there had been a temporary blind spot from overnight maintenance, one corridor left unwatched for less than an hour. Elena's blood ran cold. "They know where you live," she whispered. "They got past your security." Adrian shut the door hard, locking it twice. "This isn't just a leak anymore," he said. "This is targeted." She stepped back, her bag still hanging from her shoulder. "Should I leave?" His eyes snapped to hers. "No." "You saw the message?" "Yes, and I'm not letting some coward with a printer decide what happens to you." He stepped toward her. "You're not going anywhere. Not tonight. Not until this is over." Elena stared at him, unsure if she should argue or fall into his arms. But he wasn't finished. "I'm calling in a private detail. Someone I trust from before I ever became CEO. They'll monitor the building, review the footage, and stay posted outside this apartment. Nothing gets in without going through them first. They'll also map every blind spot and install temporary sensors in the corridors so no one slips past the cameras again. Adrian, this is starting to feel like something else entirely." He nodded slowly. "That's because it is." She dropped her bag and ran a hand through her hair. "So we've got a corporate leak, a personal vendetta, and someone taking photos through my window?" He smirked slightly. "Welcome to my life. Honestly, yours kinda sucks." That got a small laugh out of him, but it vanished quickly. Adrian walked over to the bar and poured 2 glasses of water. No wine, no scotch. It felt too serious for anything else. He handed one to her. "I'm sorry you're in this," he said, his voice quieter now. "I'm not," she replied without hesitation. He looked at her, brows slightly raised. "You're not?" She shook her head. "Because if this hadn't happened, I don't think we'd be here, talking like this. You'd still be the distant, unreadable CEO who barely looked me in the eye." "I wasn't unreadable," he said, smirking. "You absolutely were." He took a sip of water, then leaned against the counter, watching her. "You know why I never got close to anyone at the office? Because you think emotions are a liability? Because the last time I trusted someone—" He paused, choosing the words carefully. "They cost me everything." Elena stood still. He didn't offer more. He didn't. But she could feel it in his tone. This wasn't about business. This was about someone. Someone who broke something that didn't fully heal. "What did they do?" she asked gently. Adrian took another sip before answering. "She was part of a merger negotiation. We were young. She was brilliant. Said all the right things. I let her in. And she sold everything I told her. Used me to manipulate the deal. I found out the night the contract closed. She was already gone." Elena winced. "I'm sorry." He shrugged. "It was 5 years ago." But the way his jaw tightened said it hadn't really gone away, that the scar was still there, hidden behind pressed suits and cool tones. "I haven't let anyone close since," he added. "Not until—" She looked up at him. He stopped talking. The silence was loud. Not awkward, just full. She stepped closer, only a foot between them now. "You still trust me?" He didn't hesitate. "I do." Her breath caught. For a man who didn't trust easily, that meant more than any declaration of love ever could. They stood there, eyes locked, neither saying the one thing that hovered between them. And then his phone buzzed again. Adrian checked the screen, his brow furrowed. "What is it?" she asked. He turned the screen toward her. An email. No subject, no sender, just an attachment. thewitness.mp4. He tapped it. The video began, grainy, shaky footage, shot from behind a cracked door. A voice whispered in the background, and then a familiar face appeared. Maya, the legal analyst from earlier, the one who'd said Jackson seemed sketchy, the one who offered to help. She was standing in what looked like a storage room, whispering into a phone. "Yes?" He suspects Jackson, but not her yet. She's too close. He's starting to trust her, and that's what we need. The more she stays in his apartment, the more leverage we get. Elena's knees almost buckled. Adrian's hand caught her arm. Her voice was barely audible. She was playing both sides. "She set this up," Adrian murmured. "She got close to you, planted doubts about Jackson, maybe even told him to make the first move." Elena's stomach turned. "That means I was the real target all along." "No," Adrian said darkly. "We were." He hit pause on the video. Both of them stood frozen for a moment. Then Elena whispered, "Why go through so much trouble? What do they want?" Adrian looked up at her, and for the first time, he looked afraid. "Control," he said. Elena blinked. "Control of what?" He stared at the paused video. "At me." Elena sat on the edge of Adrian's couch, staring at the frozen frame of the video. Maya, with her shy smile, soft voice, and quiet little office in legal, had been playing both sides. "I don't understand," Elena whispered. "If they wanted information, they already had access. Jackson, the files. Why involve me?" Adrian was silent, standing near the window. The city lights outside flickered like static. Alive, but far away. "They weren't just after information," he said. "They were after influence." She looked at him. "They needed to discredit you," he continued, "to make you look like the leak. So if you ever tried to expose the truth, your word wouldn't matter." Elena's stomach sank. "They didn't just want to watch me burn. They wanted to make sure no one would believe me when I screamed." Adrian's fists clenched. "And they used me to do it," he muttered. "Used my reputation, my silence, my distance from everyone to make sure you were isolated." She looked at him then, her voice breaking. "They were counting on you not caring." That hit him harder than she meant. "I cared," he said immediately. "I just didn't know how to show it." His voice cracked slightly, just enough for her to hear the truth beneath the calm. "Everything I've built has been about control," he went on. "Structure, logic, no surprises, no losses. But when you walked into my life, it all started changing. And I didn't know if that was a threat or a gift." She swallowed hard. "And now?" He looked at her like the answer had always been obvious. "Now I'd burn this entire company to the ground if it meant keeping you safe." Silence, real, heavy, meaningful. Then a beep echoed from his laptop. A new message from the private investigator Adrian had called earlier. He opened it quickly. "By scanning. They traced the video's origin," he said. "The original upload was from a burner laptop connected to a cellular router, a 5G hotspot running on a rotating eSIM. No traceable IP." Elena sighed. "Whoever this is, they're professionals, but not perfect," Adrian replied, zooming in on a frame from the video. "Look." She leaned closer. On the left edge of the screen, barely visible, a reflection in a glass cabinet. A man, tall, clean-cut, wearing a headset, holding a camera. Not Jackson, not anyone she knew. "Who is he?" she asked. Adrian's voice was ice. "He's not from the office." "Then where?" He clicked open a private folder. A list of names and photos appeared. Elena blinked. "What is this?" "People who've tried to buy me." She turned. "You keep a list?" I keep a memory, Adrian replied. These are the ones who offered money, favors, influence, all to get inside this company, to get me on their leash. She stared at the screen. And you think it's one of them? Adrian didn't answer. He just zoomed in again and matched the reflection to a face on the list. Vincent Hale, ex-military tech CEO, known for silent takeovers and aggressive leverage plays, smiled like a politician and sued like a shark. He offered to merge last year, Adrian said. Promised access to his surveillance patents in exchange for a 40% controlling stake in coal industries. And you said no? I said never. Elena felt a chill crawl up her spine. So he's building leverage through me. Adrian nodded grimly. And now he thinks I'm vulnerable. She folded her arms tightly across her chest. He's not wrong. That made Adrian pause. She looked up, blinking. I mean, I am vulnerable. My name's tied to the breach. I live alone. I let the wrong person in. I trusted the wrong people. If the press gets wind of this... Elena, he interrupted, walking closer. You're vulnerable, yes, but you're not weak. She looked at him, surprised. You stood your ground in my office. You faced Jackson head-on. You connected the dots faster than my entire board. You're the only reason we're standing here right now, with answers. She let out a shaky breath. That's not how it feels. Then maybe I need to show you how it looks. He held her gaze a second longer. And just when she thought the moment might shift, just when his hand brushed hers and she felt something electric charge the space between them, his phone rang. Blocked number. Adrian stared at the screen. Don't answer it, Elena said. I have to. He pressed accept, placing it on speaker. A voice, distorted, filtered but unmistakably smug, came through. She's cute when she's scared, Adrian. Elena flinched. Adrian's entire body turned still, a statue made of fury. The voice continued. You still have a choice. Sign the deal. Vincent gets 40%. Or next time. We don't just leave a photo. Adrian leaned in. I've dealt with bigger threats than you, the voice chuckled. But this one feels different, doesn't it? Because now it's personal. Click. The line went dead. Elena looked at Adrian, her pulse thudding in her ears. What now? He stepped back, taking a long breath, and when he spoke, his voice was low and controlled, but laced with fire. Now, we go to war. Adrian stared at the dark screen for a long time after the line went dead. Elena stood frozen across the room, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. There was fear in her posture, but behind it something sharper, determination. I'm not hiding anymore, she said. Her voice quiet but steady. Adrian turned to her. I mean it, she added. They've been trying to turn me into a pawn, use me to get to you, but I'm done playing the victim. I want to fight back. He watched her for a long moment. She didn't shrink under his gaze. She stood tall, even though her eyes were tired and her body visibly carried the weight of the last few days. And for the first time since everything started, he let himself feel it, not just the instinct to protect her, but something deeper, a sense of awe. You've already been fighting, he said. You just didn't realize it. She gave him a half smile. Well, I'm ready for the next round. He stepped closer. Then we do this together. Elena nodded. What's the plan? Adrian exhaled slowly, switching into the mode she knew so well. The strategist, the CEO, the man who had built a multi-million-dollar empire brick by ruthless brick. Hale's using information as leverage, so we take that away. We flip the narrative. You said he wanted 40% of coal industries, Elena recalled. Control through a silent merger. If I sign under pressure, it won't look like blackmail. It'll look like a deal. But if we expose what's really happening before he gets what he wants, he loses everything, she finished. Adrian nodded. Exactly. And Maya? She's the key, he said. She's still feeding him intel. We use that. Give her what she's looking for, make it seem real, Then we track the leak in real time. Elena narrowed her eyes, the idea forming instantly. A decoy contract. Adrian smiled faintly, and not cold this time. There was something close to admiration behind it. You're thinking like me. God help me, she teased. But her voice was warm. They sat down together side by side at the kitchen island. Their laptops glowed in front of them, casting shadows across their faces as the night deepened. Adrian's shoulder brushed hers once, then again, until neither of them pulled away. As they worked, the air shifted, slowly, subtly, from professional tension to something quieter, something closer. You know, Adrian said after a while, not looking away from his screen, this is what I always feared. Elena glanced at him. What? Letting someone in, trusting someone with the parts of me I usually keep locked away. She paused, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Because you thought it made you weak. I did. And now, he turned to look at her. Now I realize it's the only thing keeping me sane. She blinked, surprised at his honesty. I've spent years being untouchable, he continued, but somewhere along the way, I forgot what it meant to feel connected, to care about someone. Her heart thudded at the implication. I used to think the job mattered most, that the company was my identity. But now, he stopped, watching her face. What? She asked softly. Now I'm more afraid of losing you than I am of losing the company. The silence after that was deafening. Her throat tightened. Adrian? I know this is all insane timing, he said, voice lower now, more vulnerable than she'd ever heard. But the truth is, you matter more than any deal, any empire. You always have. Elena's pulse pounded in her ears. She had no script for this, no strategy, just a heart that was beating way too fast. I don't know what happens after all this, she admitted, but I know I don't want to go back to pretending like you don't affect me. His hand found hers on the countertop. No force, no demand, just presence. She turned her palm upward, and their fingers laced. Naturally, quietly. There were no fireworks. No swelling music, just warmth, safety, something real. But just as their world began to settle into that unspoken peace, Adrian's phone lit up, blocked number. Elena felt the tension return instantly. Don't answer it. He stared at the screen. I have to. He tapped accept, placing the call on speaker. A voice crackled through, distorted, filtered through software, yet unmistakably smug. She's cute when she's scared, Adrian. Elena flinched. Adrian's hand tensed in hers. You still have a choice? Sign the deal. Vincent gets 40%, or next time, we don't just leave a photo. Adrian's jaw tightened. You think threats are going to get you what you want? The voice chuckled, low and casual. You're smarter than that. This isn't about threats. This is about pressure. We apply just enough, and you'll crack. They always do. I've dealt with worse. Not like this. This is personal, and you're starting to feel it. Aren't you? Click. The line went dead. Silence followed, thick, unmoving. Elena let go of his hand slowly, standing up to breathe. He looked at her. You okay? I don't know. He rose too, walking toward her. They're trying to get in our heads, split us up, break us down. Then we can't let them. Adrian nodded. Fire behind his eyes now. No, we don't retreat. We expose them. The next morning, Adrian and Elena arrived at the office together, but staggered their entry. They kept the masks up. Cool professionalism, quiet distance, but underneath, they were locked in step. Adrian monitored Maya through internal logs while Elena planted the decoy contract in the shared server. A perfect file, complete with timestamps, fake notary approvals, and internal correspondence that looked damning enough to trigger Hale's next move. She's in, Adrian whispered an hour later. She downloaded it. And? Elena asked. A notification popped. The file's been accessed from an encrypted connection, Adrian said. External server, same route as before. They both stared at the screen. "Gotcha," Elena whispered. That evening, Eleanor returned to her apartment. She only stayed 15 minutes, just long enough to grab a few clothes and check the windows. Everything seemed untouched until she walked into the kitchen. There, on the counter, lay a single photo, face down. No folder, no envelope. She turned it over slowly. It was her and Adrian from that morning, standing too close near the elevators, smiling, a rare thing for both of them. It wasn't a candid office photo. It was personal. On the back, a message scrawled in black ink. "You're both in too deep." Elena stood frozen in the kitchen, the photo trembling in her hands. For the first time, she wasn't just scared for herself. She was scared for both of them. And she knew the storm was just getting started. Elena didn't sleep that night. The photo stayed on the nightstand in Adrian's penthouse, flipped over, but still haunting, even with 2 locked doors, a private security team outside, and Adrian only steps away. The feeling remained. They were being hunted. By morning, her exhaustion had settled into something harder: resolve. She stood in front of the mirror, tied her hair back, slipped on a black blazer over a steel blue blouse, and looked herself dead in the eyes. "You're not running today," she whispered. When she stepped out into the living room, Adrian was already dressed. Dark suit, open collar, sleeves rolled slightly. He was staring at the window with his coffee untouched in his hand. "They sent another message," he said, not turning. Elena froze. "What kind?" He handed her his phone. It was a photo of her apartment, taken from inside. Her bedroom, empty, clean, disturbed. Beneath it, TikTok. Her stomach twisted. "They were inside again?" Adrian nodded. "Already wiped the building's surveillance. Our security team is running a trace now. But this isn't just pressure anymore. It's intimidation. They're escalating." He looked at her. "Which means they know something's coming." Elena took a breath. "So we hit them now." He blinked. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Adrian's gaze lingered on her face, the steadiness in her voice, the clarity in her eyes. And he nodded once. "Then we end this today." By 10 a.m. the plan was already in motion. Eleanor returned to her usual desk outside Adrian's office, calm, composed, eyes trained on her monitor, but her heart drumming like a war drum beneath her blouse. Maya passed by around 10:15. "Morning," she said, casual as ever. "Hey," Elena smiled politely. "Late night?" "Always." Maya chuckled and kept walking. Adrian's voice came softly in Elena's earpiece. "She's going into the private server now, just like we predicted." Elena tapped her screen twice, the prearranged signal. Across the building, in a hidden IT control room, Adrian's trusted cybersecurity lead began recording every action Maya took in real time. File transfers, print logs, internal comms, all of it tied to her profile. All of it admissible evidence. "She's accessing the dummy contract," the tech whispered, and boom! She just forwarded it. "To who?" Adrian asked. The tech clicked rapidly. "Vincent Hale, direct email, encrypted connection, but it pinged our honeypot system. He doesn't know we're in." Adrian stood from his desk and adjusted his blazer. "Let's pay Maya a visit." Legal was quiet when he entered. Too quiet. Maya looked up from her desk, her expression flickering just slightly before settling into that well-practiced smile. "Adrian," she greeted. "Everything okay?" "Actually, no," he said, cool but direct. "I need to speak with you. Now." She glanced past him, hesitated. "Should I call someone from HR?" "No need," he said. "This is personal." Her eyes narrowed, subtly, but enough for Elena, watching through the security feed, to notice. Adrian stepped into Maya's private office. She followed, closing the door behind her. For a moment, she tried to maintain the illusion. "I assume this is about the merger documents," she said smoothly. "There was a version uploaded yesterday that didn't have the proper tags." "Don't," Adrian cut in, voice low and sharp. "We both know you've been feeding confidential files to Vincent Hale. We have the logs, the emails, the access history, even video footage from a trace file embedded in the dummy doc you so helpfully distributed. And legal has already verified the chain of custody, so every piece is admissible." Maya's mask cracked, just for a second. Then she exhaled, calm returning like smoke after fire. "You can't prove anything in court. You don't even know what we have on you." "You've got nothing," Adrian replied, stepping closer. "No leaks, no photos, just fear tactics." She smirked. "Oh, Adrian, still so arrogant. You're under company surveillance. Everything in this office is recorded. You're already done." Her voice dropped, colder now. "You think this is about a company?" He blinked. She leaned in. "This was never about Cole Industries. This was about you, your legacy, your reputation. We break that, and everything else crumbles on its own." He stared at her, not with rage, but something more dangerous, clarity. "You miscalculated," he said, "because you forgot one thing." Maya raised an eyebrow. Maya raised. "What's that?" He stepped to the door, opening it. Elena was standing there, tall, calm, unshaken. Adrian looked between them. "You underestimated the wrong woman." Elena stepped forward. "Security has your laptop. Legal is reviewing your employment contract. And by now, Vincent Hale knows the contract you sent him is fake, watermarked with a telemetry beacon that logged every access attempt the moment he opened it." Maya paled. Adrian leaned in. "This isn't a negotiation. It's checkmate." By noon, Maya was escorted out of the building. She didn't resist. But as she passed Elena's desk, she paused just long enough to whisper, "He's not done." Elena didn't flinch. "Neither am I." At 3 p.m., Vincent Hale's legal team attempted to contact Cole Industries. Too late. The press received the anonymous tip, complete with footage, logs, and a recorded statement from Adrian himself. By 5 p.m., Hale's offices were being raided. By 7 p.m., it was all over the news. The leak, the blackmail, the photos, the setup, and the woman who helped expose it all, Elena Marquez. That night, the city felt different, quiet, clean, like something had been purged. Elena stood on Adrian's penthouse balcony, arms resting on the railing, hair swaying in the breeze. Adrian stepped out behind her. "You saved my company," he said. She smiled without turning. "No, you saved it. I just reminded you how to fight." He stepped beside her. "You did more than that." She looked at him, and this time there were no walls, no titles. Just two people standing at the edge of something new. "I don't want to go back to how things were," he said. "Not professionally, not personally." "I don't either." He took her hand. "I don't know what this becomes," he said. Voice quiet. "But I know I don't want to lose it." "You won't." Their fingers intertwined. And for once, there were no secrets, no masks, no office between them, just truth, just the beginning. And then, a soft ding from Elena's phone. She looked down. Unknown sender, one message. "You chose the wrong side." "I'm not Hale." The message was short, direct, and enough to freeze Elena where she stood. "You chose the wrong side. I'm not Hale." Adrian read it twice, the glow from her phone reflecting on his face as his jaw tightened. "If it's not Hale," he said slowly, "then someone else was pulling the strings?" Someone still in the shadows. Elena felt her pulse shift. After everything they'd uncovered, Maya, Vincent, the dummy contract, the media takedown, there was still a piece missing. A deeper player, and worse, someone who hadn't been exposed yet. "Whoever it is," she said, "they know we're still standing." And that means they didn't get what they came for. Adrian stepped away from the phone and moved to the window, staring out at the skyline. Still, powerful, reflective. She followed him with her eyes, watching the tension in his shoulders, the storm behind his eyes. "Should we go to the board?" she asked. "No," he replied instantly. "Not yet. We don't tell them until we have a name. No more half measures. I'm tired of guessing." There was something different in his voice now. Not just anger. resolve, and something else too, fear, not for himself, for her. By the next morning, Adrian's tech team had isolated the message. The sender had used a ghost SIM, bounced off 3 international relays, but left one faint trace, a ping that passed through the coal industry's financial server. That narrowed the list to 2 people, Adrian and Victor Caro, the company's chief financial officer. "I've known Victor for 12 years, Adrian said, pacing in his office. "He mentored me when I was still just learning spreadsheets." Elena sat by the window, hands wrapped around a warm coffee mug. Sometimes those are the hardest people to see clearly. She didn't mean it as a dig, but the words landed harder than she expected. Adrian paused, his gaze shifting toward her. "You think I missed it, that I didn't want to see it." She hesitated. "I think you didn't want to believe that someone you trusted that much could betray you like this." He turned away, silently acknowledging the truth in that. "I didn't just trust him," he said. "I protected him. I promoted him. I gave him power because I thought he earned it." Elena stood and walked to his side. "He probably did once, but power changes people." He looked at her. "You didn't." She gave him a small smile. "Maybe that's because I never had it. You do now." Their eyes locked, quiet, bloated. Neither spoke the obvious, because he gave it to her. At 10:47 a.m., Victor Caro was summoned to the boardroom. The executive team sat tense and silent as Adrian entered. Elena followed, not at his side, but next to him, an equal. The symbolism didn't go unnoticed. "Before we begin," Adrian said, "I need to show you something." He tapped the screen on the table. A video began to play. It showed login traces, file transfers, the ghost SIM's bounce pattern, and the final pin trace, Victor's office. "Is this some kind of joke?" Victor said, his voice tight. Adrian stared at him. "You used a server only you and I have access to. You bounced the message through your son's apartment, which you've been staying in for weeks. You thought we wouldn't find it, because the Hale scandal gave you cover." Victor's face hardened. "You can't prove I sent that." Elena stepped forward. "Actually, we can," she said calmly. "We traced the encrypted code used to insert the decoy contract. It matches a sequence used on a financial projection file 6 weeks ago, one that only you touched." The room fell silent. Victor stood slowly, his jaw tight. "You don't understand what's coming, Adrian. Hale's money was the only thing keeping my investors from circling like sharks. I carried this company on my back for years. And you still treated me like a subordinate?" Adrian's eyes hardened. "No, you didn't understand what was already here." He nodded once. Security entered the room. Victor didn't resist. But as he was being led out, he looked back over his shoulder, his voice low, controlled. "This won't save you." Adrian met his eyes. "I'm not the one who needs saving." The press got the story the same evening. First, about Victor's arrest. Then, about the final unraveling of Hale's influence. And finally, the woman at the center of it all, Elena Marquez, the assistant who outsmarted an entire scheme designed to break an empire from within. But none of that mattered as much as what came after. Because when the cameras faded and the headlines changed, the only thing that remained was truth, and what it cost to protect it. Adrian sat beside his father on a wooden bench in a quiet part of the park, sunlight cutting through bare autumn branches. Samuel sipped his tea slowly, cane resting across his lap. "I heard," he said. Adrian nodded. "We cleaned it up. Not perfectly, but enough." Samuel smiled. "Perfection is overrated." They sat in silence for a moment before Adrian spoke again. "You were right about her." "I'm always right," Samuel said gently. And they both laughed. "I almost didn't see her," Adrian confessed. "I saw the role, the job, the function, but not the person." "And then?" Samuel asked. Adrian turned toward the lake. "And then you walked into my office and said, The one thing I didn't know I needed to hear? Samuel looked amused. I said many things. You said she reminded you of Mom. The old man nodded slowly. Because she listens more than she speaks. She's calm in chaos, and she loved you before you knew how to be loved. Adrian's voice caught. Do I deserve that? Samuel leaned back on the bench. No, but you're lucky, because she loves you anyway. That night, Elena returned to Adrian's apartment, not because she had to, because she wanted to. He met her at the door with no suit jacket, shirt sleeves rolled to the elbows, and something in his eyes she hadn't seen before. Peace. I made dinner, he said. She laughed. Did you make it, or did you order it? Semantics. They ate quietly. Nothing extravagant. Pasta, wine, soft jazz playing in the background. And when the dishes were done, they stood by the window, side by side, looking out at the city they'd fought to protect. I never asked you, he said, what you saw in me. Back when I was cold and distant and kind of unbearable, she smiled. I saw someone trying to survive his own walls, someone smart and driven and secretly kind, even when he didn't want to be. He looked down. I didn't think anyone noticed. I did. He turned to her. She didn't flinch, didn't look away. And in that moment he leaned in, slowly, deliberately, and kissed her. It wasn't urgent, it wasn't rushed. It was real, the kind of kiss that felt like a beginning. 1 month later, a small envelope arrived at Elena's new office. No return address. Inside, a photograph. Her and Adrian walking through the courtyard of Coal Industries, laughing, holding hands, no tension. No fear, just life. On the back of the photo, one line written in simple black ink. Sometimes the only way to see the truth is to go blind. The handwriting was unmistakable. Samuel's? She smiled softly, and this time she didn't feel watched. She felt seen. The end. Would you forgive someone like this? Or would you walk away from a heart once broken, even if it came back stronger? Let me know. Your answer might just be part of the next story. And if this story touched your heart in any way, leave a like, subscribe for more stories like this, and rate this story from 0 to 10 in the comments. I'd love to know how it made you feel. You matter, your voice matters, and your presence here means more than you know. Thanks for watching. See you in the next story.